publisher of the Watchdog report on Substack and former spokesperson and senior advisor for Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, Kurt Bardella, and Matthew Bartlett, who was a former U.S. State Department appointee during Trump's first term. Our thanks to all of you for being here this morning. Molly, starting with you, let's talk about the politics of this just for a first. We'll dive into the Clinton's depositions in a moment. But just the revelations, the ongoing revelations in the last couple of days, that documents missing, interviews missing, ones that could potentially really embarrass, shall we say, President Trump, seems to be undermining any faith anyone had that any remaining faith that the DOJ was conducting an impartial investigation, and would seem to me to be only prolonging a very bad story.
Yeah, and I wonder if this administration's plan to just sort of ride it out is working. Because if you look at the UK, you have two different people, Peter Mendelsohn and the former Prince Andrew, both called in for questioning. You have the rest of, all of these European families, grappling with their appearance in the Epstein files. You have huge consequences around the world. You have the Norwegian ex-prime minister tried to kill himself. I mean, you really have the rest of the world is taking this very, very seriously. And then our country, not so much. And I think that it's really, and even now you're starting to see the private sector getting, starting to wonder, talk about consequences and people resigning. And I think that this is a really big story, and I just don't think you can wait it out.
Yeah, and certainly, the victims, first and foremost, should be front and center, but it is a politics story now. It is. And Pablo, I mentioned earlier, it's hard for the Department of Justice to suggest they are conducting a good faith investigation when they're flying a banner with Donald Trump's face on it in front of DOJ headquarters in Washington. And now so much of this seems to be trying to put their thumb on the scales and try to misdirect. Hey, look at the Clintons, and now we have these depositions later today.
Yeah, I often think of the bed of nails theory with Trump. There are so many controversies that can any single one puncture him. But in this case, this is contrary to his campaign promise, to the name of the law in question, which he signed. It's also contrary, frankly, to the very notion of, hey, we're going to generally really care about protecting women, about pedophilia, just like the very basic things that would be ostensibly very, very important to any, just like within the main administration. And so a question for Kurt Bardella. Kurt, you worked at the Republican House Oversight Committee. Mm-hmm. What is the tactic here? As this seems meaningful in the public view, but procedurally, what do you think happens here?
Yeah, really for Republicans, their goal was just to get the Clintons to do a closer deposition. That is what success looks like to Republicans on that committee. I think that this is a case where both Republicans and Democrats are actually going to walk away with something here. Democrats now have the precedent set that if they get back the reins of power in November and the power of the subpoena, the power of the gavel, the power to call hearings, they now can point to this action by Republicans, by James Comer, and say, hey, listen, no one's off limits anymore. Former president, member of the First Family, former Secretary of State, former U.S. Senator, former nominee for president. You can now call them in for a deposition and ask the questions. And Democrats have been really clear that if they get that subpoena power back, then Chairman Robert Garcia is going to be subpoenaing Donald Trump. He's going to subpoena the people that Republicans seem reticent or unwilling to get answers for. We talked about that subpoena earlier that was bipartisan, getting as many people to answer questions as possible. The reality is Comer excused a number of those people from even having to testify. That's why the Clintons were very confused about why are they being asked to come in to do this? Well, people who had direct access to the investigation were allowed to just walk away, allowed to submit an affidavit and say, okay, we don't know anything, let's move on. It's very telling that Comer Republicans sat out the deposition of Wexler, the financier of Epstein. Not one Republican member went to that deposition, but a bunch of them are parading out to New York today to be part of this one. Doesn't add up.